Basketball. A game where individuals can shine and teams can conquer. Where fans can delight and cities can rapture. No matter which team you support or player you cherish, there's one thing everyone has in common. We all love the game of basketball. Today we'll be talking Ben Simmons, but not just about his flaws or which team he should get traded to, but also his overwhelming strengths, which are recently being overshadowed by his poor playoffs, and that some fans and media alike are overlooking. Firstly, yes, let's acknowledge that play.
Out of it and is headed to the line.
Well, but that's when you know that the game is in your head. That's a dunk for Ben Simmons right there. You got it, and I know you got to decide what you got, the free throws, but Ben Simmons, you got to shoot that shot. Be confident.
Yes, Simmons should have dunked the ball. Yes, he passed out of a dunk because he was afraid he was going to get fouled and have to shoot free throws. And yes, he only scored 5 points for the whole game and only took 4 shots. But let's not pretend like he didn't have a massive part in keeping Trae Young at 21% from the field and 18% from the 3-point line, and was also one of only 2 76ers starters to have a positive plus-minus rating, with the other being Furk and Korkmaz. The game was not lost due to Ben Simmons' brain fade at the end of the game. It was lost because the 76ers turned the ball over 17 times, 8 of which came from Embiid. It was lost because Tobias Harris shot 33% from the field off 24 shots, which was a third of the team's attempts, and it was lost because Philly couldn't control Atlanta's bench, particularly Gallinari's 17 points, which was 2 more points than the whole 76ers bench combined. Philadelphia led almost all major statistics for the game, but lost it as a team, not because of one individual play or player. Fast forward to today, and due to some controversial post-game comments and the subsequent events thereafter, and we have Ben Simmons recently giving up over $8 million in salary by choosing not to attend training camp, and after previously asking for a trade. This is also compounded by Philly struggling to find a suitable deal after some in the organisation deciding to publicly shame Simmons for his weaknesses and therefore lessening his perceived trade value. So where to for Simmons? What team would be a good fit? Well, before we go into that, we need to truly have a look at Simmons as a player and what he can offer. I'll use Giannis as a comparison player. Yes, I know Giannis is a much better player than Simmons right now, but they both share similar attributes. Both struggle to shoot jump shots and free throws, the only difference being that Giannis isn't afraid to shoot them. But teams defend both the same way. Most if not all teams don't really bother to guard Giannis on the 3-point line, and are happy to foul him once he drives in the lane, knowing he struggles from the stripe. The difference is that we see Giannis as an athletic, slashing power forward, not a point guard like we do Simmons. In most people's eyes, the modern day point guard has to be able to shoot well. There are very few all-star caliber point guards who are not at least above average from 3. Westbrook may be the only exception. I think we need to reevaluate Simmons' true position on the court as a point forward, not a point guard. Traditionally, point forwards haven't been amazing shooters. LeBron's only recently become a solid shooter, but earlier in his career he's had his troubles from the 3-point line and on free throws. He has also only played as the point guard once in his career. He's always played with another point guard or playmaker. Think Dwayne Wade, Kyrie Irving, Rajon Rondo, and now Westbrook. Even Mo Williams was a capable point guard in those early Cavs years, but LeBron has always been a point forward predominantly. So it begs the question, should Ben Simmons play power forward? In my opinion, yes he should, and I think teams should look at him that way. He stands 6'11", has a career average of 8.1 rebounds a game, and over the last few seasons has been a perennial top 20 player in defensive win shares, defensive box plus minus, and defensive rating to consolidate his 2 all-defensive first teams, whilst weighing in at 240 pounds, which is large enough to hold his own against most bigs. So essentially, whichever team he goes to will end up getting a 2-way playmaking 4-man who can grab a board and instantly start a fast break, much like LeBron, Giannis, and the like can. Yes, he won't be able to stretch the floor like modern day bigs can, but there's been many great players of Simmons' size since the turn of the century who can't shoot. Think champion and 4-time Defensive Player of the Year Ben Wallace, who's now a Hall of Famer, Dwight Howard in his prime with the Orlando Magic, and more recently 2-time MVP and newly crowned champion Giannis Antetokounmpo. So it can obviously work, building a team around a bad shooter even today. So who should trade for Simmons, and where would he be a great fit? Just quickly, Philly won't have the leverage in most trades, as a player refuses to play for them, and he's on a big contract which teams will use against the 76ers. Because the Philly will obviously want out of that deal, they'll likely have to accept something that may be less than what they'd hoped for in order to get a team to take on that contract. Let's look at some teams. Just quickly, the unfortunate thing for Philly is that there's not that many teams around the league right now who need or want a player like Simmons, and are also willing to give up close to what the 76ers are looking for. With that in mind, let's start with the Sacramento Kings. The Kings could offer a deal centered around Buddy Hield, who's on a contract the Kings may want to offload. He's a consistent outside threat who can contribute 15 to 20 points per game. He's not the playmaker or defender Simmons is, but he adds great shooting around Embiid. A deal of Hield with Marvin Bagley or Harrison Barnes as forward depth for Simmons and a role player from Philly to match salary, such as say Korkmaz, along with some pick swaps, could be solid for both teams. However, Hield is likely not the caliber of player Philly are looking for, and therefore this scenario is difficult to see happening. Secondly, Portland could be a team where if things start poorly may consider a trade around CJ McCollum. To be fair, McCollum is obviously a core piece to Portland's team and has great chemistry with playing beside Dame. He has also been a consistent 20 point per game scorer for the last 6 years. In a trade, some players may need to be exchanged to match salaries, again with some picks involved, but Portland may look at what the Raptors did in 2018-19 with DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry. They split their two core pieces apart after more than a decade of solid playoff runs, and trading DeRozan to the Spurs for Kawhi Leonard, which ultimately resulted in a championship. In this scenario, Dame could offer the scoring of Kawhi and Simmons the defense, with both being elite playmakers like Kyle Lowry was for the Raptors. Lastly, if the Washington Wizards, like the Trailblazers, are struggling and outside the playoffs come All-Star break, Bradley Beal and the team may be open to a trade. If Simmons hasn't been dealt yet, a straightforward swap of Simmons for Beal may work for both parties, with some other assets and sweeteners. However, Beal is amongst the top handful of scorers in the league, and Simmons may very well have not played a game yet all season. So in this scenario, I can see Philly needing to add something reasonably significant to the trade in order to command Washington's attention, as many teams will be interested in Beal. Whatever happens, I think we can all agree, the Simmons and Embiid partnership has run its course, and both players would be better off with their own teams. Where that is for Simmons, I'm still not sure, but he's only 25 and still has time to sort things out on a new team. Eventually, fans of whichever team he goes to should welcome him with an open mind, as they could be truly getting a dominant defender, playmaker, and when given the responsibility to score, slasher of the like we haven't seen since Scottie Pippen.
Bulls answer to John Stark's spectacular dunk last year. And he hovered over Ewing for a second.